2 GNU+Linux distro recommendations for advanced users and perhaps for users seeking advanced features. The first top place recommendation will be a static release, and the second recommendation will be a rolling release. If you don't need the latest software, a static release can be used, and that is my recommendation. That is why the first recommendation is a static release. If you need the latest software for whatever reason, then you can use the second recommendation, which is a rolling release. So let's get to the recommendations. The first place, top recommendation, is Debian GNU+Linux. Debian is my favorite operating system. It is stable, it works, it has a good package manager, it has a lot of software in the repositories. It is in every way for me my top pick for an operating system. It allows the user to install, well, at least mostly free software. These days it has the kernel firmware and those things enabled by default. That's unfortunate, but other than that it's fully free, and before that decision it was fully free entirely. Anyway, so Debian is really good when it comes to the software freedom, and also talking about the kernel firmware, I can personally tolerate using the firmware myself, but it is still bad to have it by default on the releases, because you're still distributing proprietary software, so there could be a way to enable that sort of thing manually after the install or something like that, which would be better. The operating system should be distributed as free software only, or at least there should be a free software only option. Yeah, but let's not get into that too much any more than that. Right, Debian, it has usually pretty old software. Of course, when the version is just released, it will have the latest software, but as it gets older, the software gets older with it. The software doesn't get updated, and it gets pretty old before a new release is released. But I don't mind that, because I don't need the most latest software myself, so I will say that's fine. And also, here's the thing, you don't have to update all the time. With a rolling release, you have to update constantly. You have to keep updating and downloading new updates. If you have a bad internet connection, then rolling releases is out of the question, because it's gonna eat up all of your internet connection downloading those updates all the time, and that's really bad. I don't recommend using rolling releases for those who have bad internet connections. Debian, it doesn't need to be updated all the time. I don't like updating. I'd rather do it as infrequently as possible. Debian is really good. Debian, it allows the user, it gives the user a lot of power. It is a very powerful operating system. All kinds of... You can basically also install the Debian without any GUI environment and then install manually whatever you want to install. So it is pretty minimalist also, optionally. You can install a desktop environment by default, and it comes with many options for desktop environments also by default. But if you select none of them, you can still install other desktop environments and window managers from the repository. So the Debian allows the user to do all kinds of things, customize the operating system to their liking, from the terminal install whatever they want. And that's very advanced, hence why I put it in these advanced recommendations. Speech of mine. Debian, it is really good, it is stable, really stable, and if you don't need newest features, it is really good. And also, things like the Flatpak will still allow you to use later newer versions of software which you install from the Flatpak, so you can still get newer versions that way of some software that you use. The core and the repositories will just have old software. But if that's not an issue for you, then Debian is a really awesome distro. It allows you to customize everything, like I talked about, installing all those programs manually. It doesn't come with nonsense. It has no nonsense. Basically, you just install the operating system, and you could, if you don't select any desktop environment and you install it, it's basically just a clean GNU+Linux operating system. It doesn't come with any nonsense. You can use that on a server. You just install it, and then you can use it as a server. You can install your server stuff. Or you can pull a desktop workstation out of it. You can basically customize it as far as you can take any GNU+Linux distro. Now, you can also customize other operating systems, like these distributions, I mean. But here's the thing, if it has all of these GUI things already pre-installed, then you're gonna have to start ripping that out, and that's just not a good way to do it. I wouldn't recommend doing that. If you want a very customized setup, then I wouldn't recommend you use some sort of a beginner-friendly distro with all these bloat softwares on it. Basically, it has all of this nonsense put into it. And then you would need to start ripping that out and installing your own software. And that's just a useless hassle. Why bother with such things? If you want to make your customized setup, then you should start with something minimal. And Debian offers that. Debian is really good. Basically, it's really good. Oh no, and also I want to mention, there is this fork of Debian called Devuan, for those who don't like systemd. Yes. So that's also something I like to mention. So, Debian is really good. It is stable, it works. The package manager is good, it's easy to use. It's in every way, to me, Debian is like the best operating system to me, for my use case, what I like, basically. That's why it's my favorite. Anyway, whatever. But enough of my favorites. Let's get to the second recommendation, which is a rolling release. And this is for those users who want the latest softwares. The pick for the rolling release is OpenSUSE. Now, OpenSUSE, it comes with the Super Package Manager, and it uses RPM packages. So, that's interesting, but now OpenSUSE also has quite a lot of software in the repositories. And let's see, what makes OpenSUSE good? Well, OpenSUSE, it is a rolling release, but it's not like any other rolling release, such as ARX, where ARX has the absolute latest software in the repositories. Basically, the moment a new version is released of some software, ARX just takes it and immediately pushes it out to the users. And unless you are some sort of a computer hobbyist and you for some reason absolutely need the latest features and something for some reason, unless you absolutely want the latest software for some reason, then you can use OpenSUSE, because OpenSUSE has rolling release software. It has the latest features, but it just doesn't get them immediately after the new version of the software is released. It basically might take actually I don't know what the specific amount of time it is that it takes, maybe a week or two perhaps. I'm actually not absolutely sure how long that is, but I do know that they do extensive testing on the software. So the time period it takes isn't that specific or important. What's important is that they do extensive testing, and it is soon enough. It is soon enough for you to get the latest software. You just don't get them immediately, but then why should you need to get them immediately? If you want to do that, then you can use a different distro, but OpenSUSE gives you the latest features. It is a rolling release distro. Oh yes, and also, I'm specifically talking about Tumbleweed. Yeah, that's actually something I should specify. I didn't say that when I introduced OpenSUSE. Yeah, it's specifically Tumbleweed, yes. So, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, I should have said that. So anyway, that is a rolling release. Although it is somewhat implied by the fact that this is a rolling release recommendation, so what is a rolling release OpenSUSE? Well, the tumbleweed is. But anyway, OpenSUSE tumbleweed is a rolling release. It comes with the latest software, but it goes through extensive testing first. So it doesn't push them out immediately. So you don't get broken software like you would get on distros like ARCs, where the system will just break because the package repository maintainers, they just push you garbage, nonsense, broken software. So for those who don't really care to mess with that sort of stuff and just want a stable operating system, which does still come with latest features, then OpenSUSE tumbleweed is a good choice. It's my recommendation. Another good thing about OpenSUSE is the YAST control system. What should I call it? I don't actually know what it should be called. It's like, if you're familiar with Microsoft's Windows operating systems, there is the control panel. A lot of people have liked that and often complain that GNU+Linux doesn't have something like that. Well, OpenSUSE does. OpenSUSE does have that kind of software. Basically, it has all of these functions that you could do on the operating system that are often done on the terminal on different distros. You can do it all from a GUI. And the reason why that is advanced is because, well, you can do all those advanced things from a GUI. You can do it all from a GUI. And also, YAST has this interesting feature of being able to be run from a terminal also. So you can run the YAST from the desktop environment or window manager, or you can run it from a terminal, and you get this sort of a terminal user interface. So that is interesting. That is really cool. So you can basically like OpenSUSE is this enterprise grade operating system in that it has all these different things that you can do with the YAST, and you can basically just customize it all. Well, actually, no, I shouldn't say customize, but you can change the settings for everything in that sense with what the YAST does. Look into the YAST yourself. I'm not gonna go into any further details. This is just a recommendation, not an explanation. So, the YAST is really cool. That, and it comes with the latest software, so basically, if I was to recommend a production system, an operating system that has latest software, it would be OpenSUSE, because that comes with all of that. Oh yes, and I also should probably mention, because I talk about that, and not probably, I should mention, and I will mention, that OpenSUSE allows the user to only install free software, except, of course, the kernel will have some firmware, non-free firmware. While that is unfortunate, it's not necessarily the worst thing, but it is still non-free software. So, that's unfortunate, depending on how far you wanna take the software freedom. If you cannot tolerate non-free software in the kernel, then it might not be a good thing. But it is possible, as far as I'm aware. It might be possible. Actually, I don't know if it's possible on OpenSUSE to install the Linux Libre kernel. I think it should be possible. It might be, but anyway. If it is possible, you can just install the Linux Libre kernel after the fact, after the installation. If you really want to use absolutely 100% free software. So, even counting non-free firmware. Anyway, at least the repositories can be enabled so that there's only free software repositories. So that is good. In the installer, when you're installing the operating system, it comes with all of these options. Oh yes, and I should talk about that, and I will talk about that now. The installer has extensive options. You can choose all the different programs that you want to install, the desktop environments. and all the other things, you can choose. Basically, there's just so many options. There are so many options in the installer that it's a lot. The installer, it just has so many options. You can just go through all the options in the installer, and it gives you all those options. You can customize the operating system from there already. Yeah, that is also something to mention. Yes. So, that's probably enough for talking about this now. You can go look into these operating systems more yourself. Basically, this is just to point out you to the direction where to go looking for. Of course, it is always up to you yourself what you want to use, what operating system. If you value my opinion, then I point you to these directions. You go look at these distros and then decide what is it that you want. Oh, and also, when I say that Debian is the first place recommendation and OpenSUSE is the second, that doesn't necessarily mean that Debian is objectively better for everyone always than OpenSUSE is. That's not what it means. It's just the first recommendation, the first place to go look for operating systems. Yes. Yeah, it's probably good to clarify that, what it means to have a first place and a second place recommendation. It's just the first place you go to look for, and then if it doesn't necessarily meet your needs, then you go to the second place. So that's perhaps what it means to have a first place recommendation and a second place recommendation. That's what it means for me anyway. So, what is the best for your use case? It's of course up to you. It is also possible that none of these operating systems, neither of these operating systems is good for you. But for those people who just need absolutely some latest software or need some specific feature, well, generally they already know what they're looking for. And for the hobbyists and all those who like to experiment with operating systems, well, they don't need to listen to my recommendations. They'll just go and do that themselves, regardless of what I say. They don't need to listen to me. Well, no one has to listen to me. But what it means is that they'll just go do it. If you are interested in installing some ARX operating system because you are interested in that sort of thing, then you're just gonna do it because you're interested in that. Right. But the recommendations are what the recommendations are. So, that's that for this speech.